Very satisfied, great job, incredible. Those are some of the words that Donald Trump and administration officials have used to describe their relief efforts in Puerto Rico after the U.S. territory was devastated by Hurricane Maria. Now, it should go without saying, but nothing is great, let alone incredible, about what's going on in Puerto Rico. And Trump administration officials are facing a growing backlash over the sluggishness of the federal response, as well as for tone-deaf remarks like this one by Elaine Duke, the acting Homeland Security Secretary, during a Thursday press conference.
I am very satisfied. I know it's a hard storm to recover from, but the amount of progress that's been made, and I really would appreciate any support that we get. I know it is really a good news story in terms of our ability to reach people and the limited number of deaths that have taken place in such a devastating hurricane.
A good news story. Just let that sink in for a moment. Make no mistake about it, the situation in Puerto Rico is dire. Roughly half the residents are still without running water. Just 36 of Puerto Rico's 69 hospitals are open and have power. Millions of people who, again, are U.S. citizens, are increasingly desperate and begging for help, literally. And a Trump administration official is concerned about good press. After a day of bad news stories about Elaine Duke's response, she had a different message today.
Clearly, the situation here in Puerto Rico after the devastating hurricane is not satisfactory, but together we are getting there, and the progress today is very, very strong.
But while Acting Secretary Duke seems to have learned something from the criticism, her boss, the president, well, he's still Donald Trump. This morning, he tweeted out more self-congratulatory praise. Quote, Puerto Rico Governor Ricardo Rosselló just stated the administration and the president, every time we've spoken, they've delivered. The fact is, Puerto Rico has been destroyed by 2 hurricanes. Big decisions will have to be made as to the cost of its rebuilding, exclamation point. Now, if you didn't catch that, in addition to highlighting some positive comments about himself, Trump also cast doubt on whether Washington would even lend a hand to repair the damage to the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico. There's a big question mark over that at the moment, with a spokesman for FEMA telling NBC News that administrators want to assess the damage before committing to fixing public infrastructure. During a speech this morning, Trump muddied the waters even further on whether Puerto Rico will get that assistance.
The government of Puerto Rico will have to work with us to determine how this massive rebuilding effort will end up being one of the biggest ever, will be funded and organized, and what we will do with the tremendous amount of existing debt already on the island.
Hours after that speech, Trump was answering questions on the White House lawn about the administration's relief efforts. And at the very same time, in San Juan, the city's mayor, Carmen Yulín Cruz, was also speaking about the administration's relief efforts. And the difference in their responses is worth listening to. First, here's what Donald Trump said.
I'll tell you, the governor of Puerto Rico has been unbelievably generous with his statements. I mean, he's been praising our efforts. And this is a very difficult, this is a total devastation. I can tell you this, we have done an incredible job considering there's absolutely nothing to work with.
Okay, and here's San Juan Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz.
We are dying here, and I cannot fathom the thought that the greatest nation in the world cannot figure out the logistics for a small island of 100 miles by 35 miles long. So, Mayday, we are in trouble. I have been very respectful of the FEMA employees. I have been patient, but we have no time for patience anymore. So I am asking the President of the United States to make sure somebody is in charge that is up to the task of saving lives. I will do what I never thought I was going to do. I am begging anyone that can hear us to save us from dying. If anybody out there is listening to us, we are dying, and you are killing us with the inefficiency and the bureaucracy.
Joining us on the phone from San Juan, Puerto Rico, is Jordyn Holman, a business reporter for Bloomberg. So, Jordyn, it's pretty stark hearing the mayor of an American city. Not since Katrina have we heard that kind of a plea from Americans to their federal government for help. Give us a sense of who's right. Donald Trump says the relief effort is going quite well, and the mayor of San Juan says it's dire. Who's right?
I've been talking to a lot of citizens down here in the past few days in San Juan and other rural towns on Puerto Rico, and it really does sound like the mayor's right. A lot of people here just have not seen FEMA, have not felt like they were getting the deliveries that have been promised. They are waiting in long lines, spending their whole days trying to get gas, trying to take money out of ATMs, trying to get food from the grocery stores. It's just a very arduous process this past week.
And we're hearing reports, and this is from some notes that when you spoke earlier with our producers, what about the situation for schools and for kids? Because, of course, this is the time when they would normally be in school. It
is, and they're not in school, you know. The last time a major hurricane hit Puerto Rico was in the 80s, and school was out for 3 weeks. I was talking to some parents today. They think it might be 2 months. And so that puts parents in a really difficult space because they don't want the kids to fall behind in school. But then also they don't have anywhere to go. The parents are looking for jobs, so the kids are just out in the street.
And if you could just explain sort of to folks who, you know, and obviously these pictures are remarkable, but the damage to the actual physical infrastructure, how extensive is that?
So the highways are pretty much clear, but it's when you go to the rural towns, there's still trees laying around. Utility poles are leaned over into the street as if it's like a ladder. So the roads are pretty bad when you get into the mountainous areas of the island. I was talking to some truckers who are trying to get, you know, this aid and food and ice to people out in those areas, and they said you have to be very brave to try to even get drive there.
Wow. Well, Jordyn Holman, thank you very much coming to us from San Juan. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And joining us now, Melissa Mark-Viverito, who is the New York City Council Speaker. She was born and raised in Puerto Rico and just returned from the island earlier this week after a 3-day visit. Also joining us is Indira, Lakshmanan, a columnist for the Boston Globe. So I want to start you know, where we just ended with Jordyn, the physical infrastructure damage. Is there enough, or when you were there, did you actually see federal agencies on the ground, U.S. military on the ground, attempting to address those infrastructure issues?
No, not at all. I was there last weekend through Tuesday, and there was absolutely no presence of any sort of federal agency or FEMA that I could see. Now, let's be clear. This is a hurricane that we knew was going to hit the island. We could track its progress for over a week. We knew it was a Category 5. We knew it was going to be a straight-on, dead-on hit on the island, and it was going to be catastrophic. So the fact that there was no effort to even be ready once that hurricane hit to be sending aid and have assistance on the ground is reprehensible. That is talking about the mismanagement and the lack of empathy and understanding or even having a plan. So this is real sheer chaos, and there is absolutely no empathy coming from this administration. And the fact that he was last weekend at a golf resort, this weekend at a golf resort, when this is happening to 3.4 million U.S. citizens really speaks to the lack of interest on his part and even attention to something that is so critical and it's dire. It really is, and it's just does not seem to be really getting better. With only 10,000 people on the ground between troops and relief workers, when we had 40,000 in Florida with Irma, when we had 30,000 in Texas with Harvey, right? When international solidarity, we had over 20,000 troops in Haiti, which was great. I'm not, you know, this pales in comparison. So there is benign neglect happening to the residents and the citizens of Puerto Rico.
And Indira, I want to play one more soundbite. Rachel Maddow tonight had on the San Juan mayor, Carmen Yulín Cruz, and she talked a little bit about just the confusion in the federal response. Let's take a listen.
I was still getting questions from FEMA of what are my priorities. It seems pretty simple. You save lives with food, water, and medical supplies. It just doesn't seem like the most powerful nation in the world could be incapable of just having in 100 by 35 mile long the ability to just put fuel into hospitals.
How does the administration explain, Indira, the inability to do those basic things?
Look, I really empathize with the mayor. My heart goes out to her and to everyone in Puerto Rico, because it's a stunning dissonance to hear the president boasting about this supposedly fantastic response from the federal government. I mean, what it brings to mind for me is 12 years ago when President Bush was roundly ridiculed for saying after Hurricane Katrina, "Heck of a job, Brownie," you know, speaking about his FEMA administrator. And remember how that one statement came to haunt him so much and came to sort of epitomize what was seen as a slow response by Washington to the Katrina crisis. Here's a situation where, as the mayor has pointed out, you know, our response to Haiti and to natural disasters in other countries, not to mention the response to Hurricane Harvey in Texas and Hurricane Irma here in Florida, was so much stronger than it has been. At the beginning, it was almost as if Trump was sort of, you know, AWOL. He was at the Bedminster Trump New Jersey resort, you know, tweeting about NFL players and Alabama, the primary for the Republican primary there, and we didn't hear anything about his response to 3.4 million Americans living in Puerto Rico. Now, on the one hand, about, you know, half of Americans don't even realize that Puerto Ricans are American citizens, and I think that leads to a lot of the neglect that we were just talking about.
Yeah, well, Donald Trump, you know, did business on the island of Puerto Rico. He used to run a golf course there. You would presume that he knows sort of where it is. And this was Donald Trump talking about it today and sort of trying to explain the difficulty, apparently, in his mind of getting to Puerto Rico. This is Donald Trump and big water.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water.
Big water. Can we just show the map of where Puerto Rico is in relation to the United States? Okay, it's not far away from the United States. If you just look at that map, you can see where Puerto Rico is in relation to the United States. Donald Trump saying that it's the big water that's preventing the response from being better. Your thoughts?
I mean, it's just, you have to laugh at this. It's just mind-boggling. This is an individual who is incredibly ignorant, doesn't really understand or have any sense of context or understanding of issues, can't pay attention, doesn't seem to have an attention span to really understand the severity, and who is, you know, I say it very boldly, I mean, like, he exhibits sociopathic behavior, this lack of empathy, and really being able to understand, you know, what people are feeling, and being able to empathize in any way. It's just really horrible. The fact that within all of this context of this, this pain and suffering and dying that is happening, that he would even talk about costs of
and
the rebuilding.
Puerto Rico's economic issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is incredible, right? When that was not being discussed again with Texas, where he said 75% we're going to take care of the infrastructure we're going to build. You know, again, this narrative of people of color and immigrants, we're migrants, but immigrants, of being drains on the U.S. economy, right? That we don't have anything to contribute, that we're going to have to wait and see if we're going to help you out. I mean, this is incredible. It is racist. I truly believe it. Prejudice behavior that is now being implemented through policy, and it really is costing us so much.
And, you know, Indira, one would want to believe that, you know, that is not the reason for what definitely looks like neglect, but you also have the situation in the U.S. Virgin Islands, which isn't much better, and we weren't even able to find much news and updates on what's happening there. But it's not as if the response to the U.S. Virgin Islands, also in American territory, has you know, been covered in glory.
Well, you know, one thing that we see in common here is that people who live in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands do not have the ability to vote in the general election for president. And I think so it's not only about the color of their skin, but the second-class citizenship that is extremely unfortunate. I think that if they had a vote, if they had a sway in the Electoral College, that would make a difference. Puerto Ricans who are living on the U.S. mainland have a vote if they're living in Florida or New York or wherever else, but if they're living in Puerto Rico, they don't. And I do think that that also influences the president's response in this case. But you know, I think this is a much larger problem here, which, as she says, is a lack of empathy. But it's also the fact that President Trump is trying to put the blame on Puerto Rico itself, saying you had a debt problem before this even started, and we're going to have to see how much we can actually do to help you. It's incredible.
Let's not give you the last word.
No, I'm saying that 1 million Puerto Ricans live in Florida.
Yes.
It is the largest population outside of the island at the moment. So we have to be the voice for the island. We have to be the voice and put the pressure on the administration. And I believe that within the congressional delegation and the Senate delegation in Florida, they're going to understand that this has consequences.
That's absolutely right. People are not going to forget. New York City Council Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito, thank you very much. And Indira Lakshmanan, thank you both for joining us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.